Addiction is one of the most misunderstood experiences in human life. Society often frames it as weakness, failure, or lack of discipline. We look at the addict with judgment. Why can't they just stop? But Dr. Gabor Maté, physician and addiction expert, reframes the question entirely. He says the real question is never why the addiction. The deeper question is why the pain. Because addiction, whether to alcohol, opioids, gambling, work, or marijuana, is not primarily about pleasure-seeking. It is about pain relief. It is about a wound seeking to be soothed. When we look at marijuana specifically, we see something that confuses people. Many don't consider it addictive. Some even argue it is harmless. But for those who use it compulsively daily, or in ways that interfere with relationships and growth, it becomes more than just a plant. It becomes a coping mechanism, a refuge, and ultimately a prison. Inside the mind of a marijuana addict, we don't see someone obsessed with weed itself. We see someone seeking comfort, stillness, relief from anxiety, or escape from emptiness. We see someone trying to fill the silent void within. Dr. Maté has worked with countless addicts. His insight is clear. Every addict he has ever treated, without exception, carried unresolved trauma, childhood neglect, emotional wounds, loss, or abuse. These hidden injuries carve deep into the psyche. And when they remain unhealed, people seek relief in substances. Marijuana, in this case, becomes the bandage for an invisible wound. The smoke softens the pain for a while. It numbs the racing mind. It creates a bubble where the world's harsh edges are blurred. But behind that haze, the pain still waits. And when the high fades, the void returns. That is why marijuana addiction is not about the substance. It is about the unhealed human. And if we want to truly understand the mind of a marijuana addict, we must begin not with judgment, but with compassion. Marijuana acts on the brain's endocannabinoid system, a network of receptors responsible for regulating mood, memory, pain, and stress response. For someone who feels chronically anxious, disconnected, or restless, marijuana can feel like a perfect medicine. The first time someone smokes, they might feel relief they didn't even know they were craving. The constant buzzing of worry goes quiet. The edge of sadness dulls. Life feels lighter, easier, less threatening. This is why marijuana can feel deceptively safe. Unlike harder drugs, it doesn't usually lead to overdose or immediate life-destroying consequences. But its danger lies in something subtler: disconnection. Regular use blunts emotions. It dampens motivation. It numbs stress signals that might otherwise push a person to change their life. The addict begins to use marijuana not to get high, but simply to feel normal or to avoid feeling at all. Day after day, the brain becomes accustomed to external regulation. Instead of developing resilience to discomfort, the user reaches for the joint. Instead of facing pain, they float away from it. Over time, this rewires the brain's reward system. Stress, smoke, relief. Pain, smoke, and escape. The cycle deepens. What started as comfort becomes compulsion. What began as a friend becomes a master. And yet, inside the mind of the addict, this cycle feels protective. Marijuana is not seen as the problem. It feels like the solution. The addict may even defend it. It calms me down. It's natural. It helps me function. But beneath the defense lies a silent truth. They are not free. Because freedom is not the ability to use something every day. Freedom is the ability not to need it. If marijuana addiction is not about the drug, then where does it come from? Dr. Maté points us to childhood. He explains that addiction is often rooted in early trauma, not always visible abuse, but sometimes emotional neglect, absence of connection, or growing up in an environment where a child's authentic self was not seen or accepted. Imagine a child who feels unseen, unheard, or unsafe. Their nervous system adapts to survive. They carry hidden anxiety, shame, or emptiness. These feelings, unresolved, follow them into adulthood. When they discover marijuana, it feels like medicine. The tension eases. The loneliness fades. The shame is muffled. For the first time, perhaps they feel okay. But here is the paradox. What soothes them also chains them. The more they rely on marijuana, the less they develop internal tools for healing. They outsource regulation to the drug. And slowly the pain deepens because it remains unaddressed. Shame plays a vicious role here. Addicts often hate themselves for their dependence. They think, why can't I stop? What's wrong with me? But the shame itself fuels the cycle. Because shame is pain and pain seeks relief. So the marijuana addict smokes again, not just to escape the world, but to escape themselves. Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Addiction is the unconscious wound directing life. And the addict, unaware of the root cause, calls it habit, calls it preference, calls it lifestyle, until it consumes them. The opposite of addiction is not sobriety, it is connection. This is why judgment never heals an addict. Telling someone to just stop ignores the pain that keeps them hooked. True healing begins with compassion, the willingness to see the wounded, human beneath the behavior. Dr. Maté insists, when we ask why the pain, instead of why the addiction, we shift from blaming to understanding. And understanding is the soil in which healing can grow. Compassion does not excuse harmful behavior, but it removes the shame that locks people in cycles of self-destruction. Compassion says, you are not broken, you are wounded. And wounds can heal. For the marijuana addict, healing often begins not with quitting, but with noticing, why do I reach for this joint right now? What am I avoiding? What pain am I soothing? This self-inquiry opens the door to deeper work, therapy, trauma healing, and practices of reconnection with body, mind, and soul. Recovery is not just the absence of marijuana. Recovery is the presence of self. Awareness breaks the cycle. By noticing patterns, stress, smoke, relief, the addict begins to see that the substance is not the true solution. The real work is to meet the pain directly. Connection heals what disconnection created. Support groups, honest friendships, compassionate therapy, these restore the human bonds that trauma once severed, and meaning transforms suffering into strength. Nietzsche famously said, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." When an addict discovers purpose, whether through art, service, spirituality, or self-discovery, the compulsion weakens, because the void that drove them to escape begins to fill with something real. The journey of recovery is not linear. There are relapses, struggles, doubts, but at its core it is not about fighting marijuana. It is about facing pain, reclaiming connection, and choosing life. Inside the mind of a marijuana addict, we do not see weakness. We see a wounded soul searching for relief. We see a child's unmet needs echoing in an adult's habits. We see pain wearing the mask of smoke. And if we listen with compassion, we see something else, the possibility of transformation. Because addiction is not the end. It is the cry of a wound asking to be healed. And when that wound is met with love instead of shame, with connection instead of judgment, with awareness instead of denial, healing begins. Marijuana, then, is not the story. The story is the human being beneath it. And that story is always worth saving. So what about you? What does healing mean to you? Share your reflections in the comments. You never know who they might help. Subscribe for more deep explorations into psychology, healing, and the human condition. So like and share this video if it resonates. Because true healing begins not with fighting addiction, but with facing the pain beneath it and learning to meet it with compassion.